This is Damion Hardy. His nickname is World. And over the next few weeks, you are going to learn that that is a fitting nickname, because between 1998 and 2004, Damion Hardy operated as if this was his world, a world where drug dealing and violence reigned supreme, a world where his loyal followers did whatever he said without question, a world where he could decide who lived and who died. He made that decision in the blink of an eye with the snap of his fingers, and a gang of cold-blooded murderers that he controlled was ready to kill at his command. This is Granton. His nickname is eBay. He was one of those killers, an expert hitman devoted to World, who executed people without thought and with such cold precision that World used him to murder again and again. Between them, the defendants murdered 7 people: Michael Colin, Daryl Baum, J.R. Hamilton, Ivory Davis, Johan Comets, Tyrone Baum, and Troy Singleton, gunned down by the defendants in the streets of Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens. The defendants killed for power, they killed for money, and they killed for revenge. They killed so that no one would question World's reputation and the reputation of the gang that he formed. A gang of violent drug dealers that called themselves the Cash Money Brothers CMB. World started the Cash Money Brothers when he was just a teenager. The name was taken from the movie New Jack City, which portrayed the gangsters that they admired. And they lived up to that name. For more than a decade, the CMB controlled the drug trade in a housing project in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, just a few miles away from this courthouse called Lafayette Gardens. Lafayette Gardens, or LG as they called it, had 7 buildings that circle a courtyard. It has a basketball court, a playground. It's a place where families and children live. The defendants, World and eBay, grew up there. And when World was still a teenager, he looked around and he saw that other older men had what he wanted: control of the open-air drug trade that his project housed. Crack, heroin, marijuana, all those things were for sale. And in the 1990s, the crack business was booming. World was smart and manipulative and charismatic. And even as a teenager, he pulled the strings and pushed the buttons that made other people do what he wanted. In the early 1990s, he gathered a group of his friends together, kids that were small-time drug dealers in the neighborhood, and he told them that it was their time to take over Lafayette Gardens. He armed them with guns, and he told them to have his back as he went around to the other drug dealers in the neighborhood and told them, "This is my turf." And when talking didn't work, World turned to violence. And soon World and his crew shot their way to control of the drug trade in Lafayette Gardens. World always lived by the motto, "Never do for yourself what you can have other people do for you." That's how he took over Lafayette Gardens, and that's how he set up his drug business. World bought crack from suppliers, but he tried not to get his hands dirty when it came to street dealing. He had baggers to package the drugs. He had lieutenants to pass the drugs out and collect money from the workers. And he had workers who sold day and night to customers. He also had enforcers to make sure that everybody stayed in line. The crew made thousands of dollars a day. From early on, eBay was a loyal soldier. eBay started as a worker, and he soon earned a reputation as a tireless drug seller, a hustler. But eBay soon displayed another talent that changed his role: the skill and the willingness to shoot at other people. World didn't let that kind of brutal talent sit still. And soon eBay became the CMB hitman. eBay was one of a number of shooters that World had at his disposal. World used them to control his drug territory, which funded his lifestyle and protected his reputation on the street. World became a master at sizing up rivals that might threaten his drug turf and retaliating against anybody that stood in his way. And that meant anybody. Everyone was disposable, which meant that CMB was constantly at war with rival gangs and that gunfire was part of life for the people in Lafayette Gardens. Time after time, World directed the shooters, including eBay, at rivals, and you'll hear that he handed out death sentences with a simple phrase, "He has to go." And the CMB gunmen knew just what to do. In 1995, when a rival named Munchie told some of World's drug workers that they could not sell in Lafayette Gardens, World was enraged. He ordered one of his shooters to come with him, and the two of them lured Munchie to a nearby housing project. Once there, on World's order, the gunman shot Munchie multiple times. Munchie survived, but he was wheelchair-bound and never walked again. World made the message clear. If anyone threatened his power, they would have to go. And that is exactly what happened to Michael Colin in the spring of 1998. By 1998, World had been in business for a number of years, and his reputation had spread beyond Lafayette Gardens into other parts of Brooklyn. Or at least that's what he thought. At this time, the Empire Roller Rink in Brooklyn was a popular place to hang out. And in April of 1998, World arrived at the door and was not allowed in. He got into a fight with some of the rink's bouncers, and he was roughed up. World was embarrassed and enraged, and he returned to Lafayette Gardens to handle it the CMB way. The bouncer had to go. Within an hour, World grabbed one of his associates, drove him back to the rink, and armed him with a gun. And on World's orders, that associate jumped out of the car and shot the bouncer, Michael Colin, once through the chest, killing him. Michael Colin was 28 years old. World and the CMB's reputation was solidified by ruthless acts like these. In his mind, World was untouchable, but in the summer of 1999, something happened that struck at the very core of everything that had meaning to World. His drug turf, his crew, and his reputation. On June 12, 1999, World's older brother, Myron Hardy, who was also called Wise, he was one of the CMB's leaders and drug bosses. He was murdered in broad daylight outside in the middle of Lafayette Gardens, right in the heart of CMB territory. World was enraged. He wanted answers, and he wanted revenge. This was more than a threat to his drug territory. This was his brother, this was his ego, and there was only one way to respond. Everyone that World even had a hunch had anything to do with his brother's murder had to go. They had to die. The first was Ivory Davis, who was also known as Peanut. Even though Peanut and World grew up together in Lafayette Gardens, in World's mind, Peanut's cousin killed his brother, so Peanut had to go. The second was J.R. Hamilton, a man that World heard helped the shooter get away after the murder. The third was Daryl Baum, a friend of Peanut's and a man with his own violent reputation. World saw him as a threat. As soon as World gave the order to kill these people, the CMB hunted them. World's orders were to kill on site, and eBay was ready to put in the work. Daryl Baum was the first victim. On June 10th, 2000, almost a year to the day after World's brother was murdered, eBay executed Daryl Baum. That evening, the CMB spotted Daryl Baum standing on a corner in Bed-Stuy, talking to a friend, and they quickly went to work. First, a CMB member whose name was Alan Bryan, or Boo, another one of world's trusted shooters. He arrived to do the job, but when Boo saw that Daryl Baum was surrounded by a group of people, he backed out. So who did they call to get the job done? This man, eBay, the professional hitman. eBay was told where to find Baum. He arrived on the scene, and then he skipped up to Daryl Baum, pointed his gun, and shot him through the head. eBay escaped in the getaway car, driven by another CMB member, and boasted that he shot Baum while Baum was bending down to tie his shoe. Daryl Baum's friends tried to save him by putting him in a car and driving him to the hospital, but it was too late. Daryl Baum was dead. 2 months after eBay killed Daryl Baum, J.R. Hamilton was the next victim. On August 1st, 2000, the CMB spotted J.R. sitting in a restaurant that he had just opened, a small seafood place in Bed-Stuy. It was nighttime, and because he was sitting in front of a large glass window, he could clearly be seen from the outside. CMB members, including eBay, found out about JR's restaurant and drove by in hopes of spotting him for the kill. When they saw JR, they went to an apartment where eBay strapped on a bulletproof vest and armed himself with a gun. The hit team drove back to the restaurant. eBay got out of the car and walked up to the glass window, and he fired his gun. Bullets flew through the glass, through the chair that J.R. Hamilton was sitting in, and into his body. People in their restaurant scattered. eBay's gun jammed, but eBay did not flinch. He coolly cleared the jam in his gun and continued to fire at J.R. Hamilton, hitting him 3 times in the back and in the arm. J.R. Hamilton died in the hospital about a week later, and eBay later bragged about that killing and was praised by CMB members for his fearlessness under pressure. Peanut was the 3rd man to die in World's mission for revenge, while J.R. Hamilton and Daryl Baum were important victories for World. The true prize was the murder of Peanut, the cousin of his brother's shooter. A little more than a week after J.R. Hamilton died on the floor of his restaurant, eBay assassinated Peanut. The CMB had been hunting Peanut for a while, shooting him without success. But one night, World spotted Peanut at a nightclub in Manhattan, and this was the moment he had been waiting for. Who did he call? eBay, of course, a man who could get the job done